Greetings, folks. Today on my bench, I have my best friend, and it is a vintage screwhead polisher. Of all the watchmaking tools, this has to be one of my favorites because of the gratification that comes from using it. In a watch movement, screws play two roles. In addition to holding parts together, they also make a major contribution to the watch's cosmetic appearance. I can appreciate a nice watch with a beautifully designed dial, hands, and case, and yet once the movement is exposed and the screws look like they were recovered from the wreck of the Titanic, the excitement just fades away. The screw polisher, though tedious and boring to work with, gives us this end result where we can look at a movement and truly appreciate the attention to detail. There are two types of screwhead polishers. The lapping type, which is what you see here, and also the handheld tripod type, which is meant to be used on zinc plates or lapping film. The two most common lapping type polishers you'll probably find are made by Bowley or Lorch. The one you see here is made by Bowley, and believe me, there is virtually no difference between the two. They share the exact same design, so if you're in the market to buy one, and if you see one pop up on eBay, don't hesitate between the two. Assuming they are in good shape and complete sets, whether it's Lorch or Bowley, you're good to go. So, what's in the box? We have the carrier, which is designed to be held in a vise. There are two spindles. One spindle is meant to be used for screwhead polishing, while the other is meant for screw thread polishing. Here are the collets that hold the various screws. These are the lanterns for the screw thread spindle for polishing various size screw threads. These are meant for the large screws and these for the small screws. And lastly, we have three lapping wheels. When working on threads, the screw is placed inside the lantern exposing the thread. A piece of wood is placed on the roller, which then presses on top of the screw thread and polishes it. Polishing threads is not something I do often, however, so let's talk about what most of us would use this tool for about 95% of the time, and that's screw head polishing. We need to find a collet which fits the diameter of the screw thread we're about to work on. The screw is placed inside the collet. The collet is then inserted inside the collet holder or in the sub-collet. A tension rod is tightened on the bottom of the spindle, which pulls the holder into the spindle, which in turn tightens around the screw collet. Before we go further, we need a medium to polish the screws with. The most common material used for screwhead polishing is diamond paste, which is what you see here, though some watchmakers use oilstone or lapping film instead. Diamond paste comes in two variants, oil-based and water-based. There is really no difference between the two as far as their efficacy is concerned. Oil-based compounds may have an advantage where the oil content may provide extra lubrication during the lapping process, and its shelf life may be longer since oil doesn't evaporate. The water-based compounds, on the other hand, are much easier to clean. I had discussed this with the manufacturer, and he assures me that there is no difference in performance between the two. What I have here is the water-based version. Diamond paste grits are categorized by the size and weight of the diamond particles in a given container. The bigger the diamond particles, the rougher and more aggressive the finish you'll get from that particular compound. The size of the diamond particles is measured in microns. The higher the micron, the rougher the paste. So, for example, a 20 micron grit will have a smoother finish than a 28 micron sized grit. I have a full range of grits here, and to be honest, this is total overkill. For screwhead polishing, we really only need 14 micron grit down to 0.25, though a 14 micron paste is reserved for the most demanding screws. 7 micron grit and above are meant for lapping. These are used for surface or scratch removal, as well as surface flattening. For these grits, the iron lap wheel is used. Pastes containing 5, 3, and 2 micron particles are used for fine polishing. For these grits, the brass lap wheel is used. Pastes containing 1 micron, 0.5, and 0.25 micron sized particles are used for final or black polishing. For these grits, the wooden lap wheel is used. Now, if you've never worked with diamond paste before, take my word for it, these grits can be extremely aggressive. If I were, for example, to lap a screw with a 28 micron sized compound, I would immediately remove a huge amount of material off the surface of the screw head. Using a 60 or 63 micron grit would be instant annihilation for the screw head, where the screwdriver slot would disappear in seconds. Therefore, 99% of the time, I start with a 10 micron grit, which allows me to flatten the screw head and remove any screwdriver burr or any deep scratches previously made by the screwdriver. A number of solutions can be used for cleaning, such as acetone, alcohol, lighter fluid, or even mineral spirits. In this demonstration, I'm using alcohol. So I've rummaged through my box of broken dreams and I found this bridge screw, which I think would be a good candidate for the purpose of this demonstration. Incidentally, this screw does look like it was recovered from the wreck of the Titanic. Perfect. First, I'll be working on the sides of the screw head. The carrier is placed in a vise and secured. For polishing the sides of the screw head or the screw threads, the roller is facing me. The two cradles which hold the spindle are a major point of wear and tear. Therefore, it is imperative to keep them well lubricated to prevent friction and prolong the lifespan of this tool. To remove the rough metal surface, I've glued a strip of 1000 grit sandpaper onto my burnisher using double-sided tape. Pressing the burnisher on the roller helps me to keep it at a flat 90-degree angle and to make good contact with the screw head. Next, I use a strip of 1500 grit sandpaper to prepare the surface for polishing. Then, having dropped a bit of oil on my burnisher, I burnish the screw to obtain a nice, smooth metal surface. Once I'm happy with the burnishing, I charge a wooden stick with a 1 micron diamond compound and begin the final polishing process. And after a while and the magic of video editing, I end up with a nice mirror finish. Now let's move on to the part of the screw which will be visible to the owner and the admirers of the watch, the top of the screw head. I repositioned the carrier so that now the lapping wheel pin is facing me. I'm going to pause here to make a crucial point. Once you mount the screw in the spindle collet, do not take it out until the polishing process is complete. Under no circumstances should you remove the screw from the collet before you are finished. The reason for that is that reinserting the screw will never allow it to sit in the exact same position with relation to the angle of the lapping wheel. The screw will be off by a thousandth of a millimeter, and this will result in an uneven polish. Your screw head will end up with a Geneva stripe type line going through it. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with Geneva stripes on movements, but it's not something we want to see on screws. Because this screw has a very pronounced screwdriver burr, I'm going to charge the iron lapping wheel with a 10 micron sized compound. Here you can see me charging the wheel with my finger. You can also use a toothpick, but the key to success here is cleanliness, as I've said earlier. You need to prevent cross-contamination at all costs. So if you're using your finger to charge the lapping wheel, make sure your finger is thoroughly washed before charging the wheel with a different grit of compound. If you are using a toothpick to spread the compound on your wheel, throw it out and use a fresh one when switching between grits. The lapping process is just turning the spindle and the lapping wheel in opposite directions. For the heavier grits, where you are removing burr or deep scratches, you can use a slower motion. Also, check the screw often, as these heavy grits are aggressive. You don't want to go overboard and then find out that your screw is now completely flat with no screwdriver slot. Remove excess diamond paste with alcohol using a soft brush. Here is what the screw head looks like after a 10 micron grit lap. The screwdriver slot is now perfect, and any deep marks or gouges have been removed. Using an X-Acto knife, I cut the tip of a toothpick so that I can clean out any excess diamond paste from the screwdriver slot. Dental floss works also. Again, cleanliness to prevent cross-contamination is key here. I use an alcohol pad instead of water to clean the iron lap wheel in order to prevent the possibility of corrosion. Next, I charge the lapping wheel with the 7 micron grit, and the entire process is repeated again. Make sure your fingers are clean of any traces of the previous compound in order to prevent cross-contamination inside the container. I also forgot to mention that whatever solution you're using to clean the screw between switching the diamond paste grits, that solution should be fresh each time, so that you don't ruin your latest lap with particles from the previous lap floating in your rinsing solution. Dipping your screw in a solution which contains floating particles of a higher grit paste than the ones you've just used to polish your screw can cause micro scratches on your surface, and this can be extremely frustrating. Here's the screw surface after a lap using a 7-micron grit. I'm charging the brass wheel with a 5-micron grit diamond paste. This is what the screw head looks like after a 5-micron grit lap. We can see a slight shine starting to appear on the surface of the screw. The brass lap wheel is now charged with a 3-micron grit. I wasn't kidding when I said that this is tedious and boring. Here we can see a further increase of the shine on the screwhead surface. Again, the lap wheel is cleaned with an alcohol pad and thoroughly wiped. Moving on, I charged the brass lap wheel with a 2-micron grit. the result after a 2-micron grit lap. I charged the wooden lap wheel with the 1-micron grit for the final polishing process. The finest grits demand the most time and effort to achieve the perfect result. We are now working out the very fine marks on our surface, and in order to remove them, the lapping times increase substantially. In fact, for these grits, the process may need to be repeated a few times by recharging the lapping wheel with the same grit 2 or 3 times. Here are the results of the 1-micron grit. Since this is a wooden lap wheel, I do not clean it with an alcohol pad because of its dehydrative nature. I don't want the alcohol to dry out the wood and make it brittle and unusable. Therefore, this wheel is always cleaned with water. If I'm using an oil-based diamond paste, I would use a mild mixture of household degreaser and water. The wheel is now charged with a 0.5 micron paste. And as you can see, we're almost done here. All that's left now is to remove the most minute imperfections. This is where the 0.25 micron compound comes in. This is the end result. Remembering where we've started with this screw, it's a night and day difference. This screw is now ready to be fitted into a movement and proudly displayed. Lastly, in order to keep my tools in good shape and prolong the lifespan, I clean all the components prior to storing them away. This concludes the demonstration of the Bowley screwhead polishing lathe. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a comment. I do my best to answer all of them. Until the next video, take care.